Hey guys, welcome to Fearless Cooking. Hey, thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to cook Cuban-Picadillo, and I'll go through kind of what all is in it, but before you do anything else, make sure that your oven is preset to 400 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and get the cauliflower rice on because I want it to, if yours coasts for a couple of minutes at the end, that's not a problem, but I'd like for mine to be ready by the time that the dish comes together. So real quick, what I'm gonna do, I keep bags of frozen rice cauliflower in the freezer all the time. Costco has one that is organic, and I figured out that I can't buy the cauliflower as cheap as I can buy it already made from them. So it's like, to me, it's just kind of a no-brainer. And granted, I was never a big cauliflower fan years ago, but what I realized is that if I put, a little olive oil on it and some spices on it, it doesn't taste like a whole lot, and it's a great substitute for rice.
So I'm getting another vegetable. Right?
You're exactly right. So I'm just kind of dribbling some olive oil right in the middle of it.
Just left it kind of a big mountain.
Yeah, I just kind of made this is kind of like a cauliflower volcano.
Okay.
And then I'm just going to hit it with some salt, and I'm going to hit it with some pepper, and then I'm going to spread it all around, kind of mix that olive oil in. And I just want to get it in as even a layer as I can. Kind of spread it out. Yeah, here we go. And I've used, that multi-blend spice that I use. A lot of times I'll use that to season it. You can use curry, kind of whatever flavor that works for you. And it also kind of depends on obviously what you're going to have it with. So this is, I'm going to put this in and ask Jude to set a timer for, let's do 25 minutes.
Okay.
And if we get done with this other before then, I'll check it and see where we are. All right, so here's what we're doing today from an ingredient standpoint. I started Fearless Cooking the goal with it was to help people figure out how to fix food without having to use a recipe. But what I realized was the easiest way to show people how some of these different flavors work together were to use a bunch of different kinds of recipes from cultures all over the world. So what we're doing today with this is we're kind of seeing how some of these different flavors play together. So, like I said, it's a Cuban dish, or at least that's what the folks at Serious Eats attribute it to. And I've kind of looked at it before, and I think that it is probably pretty accurate. There is a picadillo dish. With this one, I'm using beef and pork, but it certainly works with all beef. You could do it with all turkey. But then I'm using red bell pepper. I said a medium onion. I had an onion that was like the size of a baby's head, so I only used about a third of it. That's how much a third of that onion was. This is a half a cup of dry white wine. This is I think it's about a 14 and a half ounce can of diced tomatoes. I use the organic ones from Costco. Tomatoes are one of those things that it's like in that dirty dozen. So my preference is always to get tomatoes organic. I've got about a third of a cup of golden raisins, and you can use raisins, currants, you can skip them, but I'll explain kind of why I have them in here in a second. This is 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. That's 2 tablespoons of, I just drawn a blank. What is that? Capers, thank you. And this is about a half a cup of olives and 2 tablespoons of olive brine in the bottom. So what I don't want to do is dump them out on the thing because then I'll pour the brine all out. This is tomato paste, garlic, bay leaves, 2 teaspoons of cumin, and 2 teaspoons of oregano. And this is the Greek oregano, you can use Greek or you could use Mexican, either one. So what we're doing with this thing is we're kind of looking at, all these different contributions to the meal. Olives are going to give it fat from the olives. They're also, because they've been brined, they're going to give it a salty component. There's also kind of an umami component. We've got the sweetness from the raisins. We've got sweetness from the bell peppers and from the onions. We've got kind of that sulfur pungent aspect of the garlic. We've got kind of a warming contribution from the cumin and the oregano and bay leaves. Hell, I don't know what they do, but they just make it taste better. Here's the thing. When we use something like tomato paste, tomato paste has something called glutamine in it. Glutamate. And what it's kind of like does the natural version of the MSG. It's just a flavor enhancer. It really ups the umami or the savory aspect of it. So anyway, I'll quit talking about it and we'll start fixing it. I'm drinking water today because we're headed to a Christmas party, and what I realize is it's kind of like the same way that I have to kind of monitor what I'm doing with food, or I start putting on pounds that I don't want to carry around with me. Kind of the same thing with alcohol. I kind of figure out, okay, if I'm going to go somewhere I know I'm going to have a couple of glasses of wine, I'm not going to drink a couple here and then drive there. So anyway, that's enough of that. So I'm going to grab the skillet. I will get this thing lit first. Come on. Here we go. All right. And I'm going to eyeball a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. All right. That's about 2 tablespoons.
So you're warming up the olive oil first?
Yeah, we'll heat it just a little bit. I think I might have been a little stingy. There we go. And so a Cuban dish is going to have influences that have got kind of a Mediterranean component to them. You've got the kind of the African influence. It's what I like is I enjoy foods that have contributions from all over the world, because to me I love chicken fried steak, but life's too short to eat nothing but chicken fried steak and mashed potatoes, in my opinion. So anyway, we'll get this going. And since I don't do a whole lot of mashed potatoes these days, chicken fried steak would get awful old just doing it by itself.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so what are you going to first put in with the oil when it's done?
So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to do the onions and the bell pepper together. Okay.
Can you talk about why you start there? And
yeah, because it's like we want to get the onions to caramelize. Mm-hmm. And then we'll add, what then we'll do is that we'll add the bay leaves, the garlic, the tomato paste, the cumin, and the oregano. I'll probably put the cumin in first to kind of let it bloom a little bit. And the beauty of having everything kind of all close together is when you forget it, it's only a couple of steps to grab it. All right, add this. Little salt and pepper. I'm going to give it a pretty good dose to begin with of salt. Not quite as much pepper. And we're just going to let this kind of hang out for a few minutes. While this is cooking, I'm going to go ahead and chop the olives. Yep, so we'll get those ready to go.
how done are you gonna want these before you add other ingredients?
It'll probably be about 3 or 4 minutes. You know,
Give them a little bit.
yeah, give them a little bit of a head start. I'm going to turn it down just a touch because it sounds, you know, that's the one thing you can. It was sounding a little too aggressive of a sizzle. And I don't want them to burn. And so if I was going to stir it constantly, it'd be one thing. But since I'm kind of leaving it on its own there, okay, and you know, move these off to the side.
So these olives are stuffed with?
So these are stuffed with jalapenos and garlic. These are ones that I get from Costco. And the thing I like about them is that it just kind of adds that little extra personality in there. You know, you can get them stuffed with pimentos. You can go to like the, you know, Central Market and Whole Foods. All those guys have olive bars. So you know, there's I don't know how many varieties of olives there are. I bet there's like, you know, probably well over 100.
So you could use darker Kalamata, any kind of olive in this dish.
Yeah, but I like the green ones for that kind of, what would they call that? I guess it's kind of a piquant. It's a kind of that peppery component that you get with the green. So that, you know, to me, dark olives it's got more of an earthy kind of sweetness. This has got more of a brightness to it.
Yeah.
All right. These back in with the brine. That way I'll just dump it all in there at once.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what we're looking like here. Yeah, it's starting to smell good. We'll give it another couple of minutes. All right. So, you know, I started Fearless Cooking as an adjunct to the health coaching that I'm doing, because I felt like that if you could get people cooking for themselves and eating their own food, that's just an automatic kind of jump start to start getting healthier, because you're able to control what it is that you're eating. And, you know, one of the things, this time of year, it's like you're going to be, and this time of year being the time between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges that people have from a kind of, well, if somebody's trying to maintain a healthy weight, or they're if they're overweight and they're trying to get themselves back down to a healthier weight. I mean, I think you're kind of got to feel like you're going through a minefield.
It's hard this time of year because there's access everywhere, work, wherever, to goodies.
Well, and not only that, you're kind of bombarded. Like every time you turn the TV on, they're showing you some advertisement for something that's a food that, you know, we kind of have this built-in mechanism that we evolved with that basically kept us protected from overeating. It's something called neuroregulation of appetite. And basically, it just says, hey, if you eat a whole bunch of one thing, you get tired of it. It's called palate fatigue, and you're done. You don't want it anymore right then. And so when we were out in the wild, the thing that did was that kept us from eating too much of something that we weren't even sure whether or not it was toxic or not. So it kind of gave us a chance to see. Today's foods are kind of a landmine as far as, you know, they're able to combine flavors that bypass that. And when you think about kind of what it is that we experience over the holidays, and what I'm going to put the cumin in next, is that we're kind of surrounded by foods that, in essence, bypass that I'm full sign, right? I mean, think about all the sweets that are around. Well, if you went to a Christmas party, they had a big old bowl of sugar there, and they just said, "Help yourself. Eat all the sugar you want." I mean, maybe a teaspoon, you know, and it'd be like, "Oh man, I can't do this. This is just too sweet." Okay, but when you mix the sugar with some fat and some carbs. I mean, sugar is a carb, but when you add like flour with it, and then you add a little bit of salt into it, it's like you can't get enough of it. And you keep eating way past when you would normally be getting that, hey, I'm full sign.
What are you putting in now?
So now I'm going to put the garlic in. And I'm just going to get that good and stirred around. Garlic is one you really kind of have to be careful with because you can burn it in a hurry. And then we're going to put the olives and the brine in. And we're going to put the tomato paste.
Tomato paste. Okay.
And the oregano. And then kind of mixing that all up. We're going to be looking for the tomato paste to get kind of a darker color. We're going to go ahead and put the bay leaves in. And then after we get this going, then we will add the, let's see if I got this order right.
The meat?
Yeah.
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 Oh, the wine too.
Yeah.
Before.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out is when that went in, but I got to get the get some color developing with the tomato paste. So really, all I'm suggesting as far as the kind of the holidays is concerned is to kind of be cognizant of, hey, there's going to be food out there that kind of depending on where you are from a weight management standpoint. In other words, if you're teetering on the point of diabetes, you may just want to go, you know what, all this stuff looks good to me, but I'm just going to completely bypass it, okay, for the holidays. With me, what I realized happened over the years was that every Thanksgiving and Christmas, it felt like that I probably gained anywhere from 2 to 5 pounds, and it never went away. It just kept, accumulating over the years. And all of a sudden I look up and I'm like, anywhere between 30 and 40 pounds overweight. So what I do, like going into holidays now, it's like I just ate whatever I wanted to the couple of days of Thanksgiving. And even just those couple of days, I gained like 5 pounds. Well, as soon as I got through with the holidays, or with Thanksgiving, I'm like, all right, time to go solid keto. So right now, the few raisins that are in here spread out over this whole thing won't throw me out of ketosis. So I'm going to stay in ketosis, which is basically just meat and vegetables between now and right up to Christmas. So I will be kind of back to my target weight. And that way, the day of Christmas, a couple of days after, I'm not going to worry about it a whole bunch. I'll probably gain 2 or 3 pounds. And then after Christmas, I'll go back and do a pretty tight keto diet for a while.
You don't know what to do to reset.
Exactly. So that way you don't all of a sudden look up and go, God, all of a sudden I'm going to have to be wearing sweatpants every day because I gained myself out of how my clothes fit. All right.
How's the dish going there, and how will people
so
know
here's
when it's time to add meat?
We're a little darker now on the tomato paste. So I'm going to go ahead and add the wine. I'm going to turn the heat up just a touch because we're going to reduce the wine by just a little bit, by about half.
Before you put the meat in?
Before I put the meat in.
Okay. Why is that?
I don't know. It seemed like a good thing. Now, because first of all, I want to get the alcohol cooked off.
Yeah, and it'll infuse the flavor into the meat, into the vegetables that are there. It smells wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, in this, I kind of do a mixture between finding recipes that I like and playing with them, and then just like start incorporating what I learned from this with other meals. Because the majority of the food that I cook during the week is just I will roast or saute a protein and a couple of vegetables. But like when I'm going to cook a protein, like say I'm going to do chicken, I know now that olives and capers go great with chicken. Okay, they go great with beef. Hell, they go great with fish, right? I mean, those two things together just kind of play nice with each other. We're dog sitting, so Leo's out here wandering around, wanting to contribute. Okay, so we're starting to reduce a little. I'll show you. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So yep. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add the meat, and this is a pound of ground beef and a pound of ground pork, and I'm just going to break this up until, hey Leo, I'd really like it if you didn't knock that off. I'm going to brown this until I get rid of the pink. And since I added a whole bunch more in here, I'm going to add some salt and pepper. Just a little extra.
Smells heavenly.
Yeah, it's it's a hearty dish. But, we're adding spinach to it. That's not part of the recipe, but I wanted it to be like a kind of a single skillet thing that would kind of have everything you need for a meal.
Yeah, that is kind of nice because by adding the spinach, I guess it gives you your green vegetables, plus the cauliflower together.
Yeah, so I mean, this thing is like loaded with vegetables, right? I mean, we got 2 pounds of beef, but then okay, Leo.
We have a dog.
You are a furry pain in the ass.
Come here. Sorry, folks. This shows you can cook and deal with a dog at the same time.
That's right.
Right?
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing is it's like, half the people that are out there going to be cooking, it's like they've got that and screaming kids.
That's
and,
true.
Trying to also help with homework. So I'm just kind of keeping this thing going. I'm going to add a little bit more heat to it. There we go. And as soon as we start getting the pink out of there, then I'll add the other vegetables.
Okay, so just to give you a heads up, there's 5 minutes left on the timer for the cauliflower.
Yeah, I think it'll probably take about that amount of time. And the thing that's nice about the cauliflower is I knew that was going to be kind of on the short end of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll
But that usually takes about, 30 minutes to cook it?
Yeah, I mean, this is about a 30-minute dish. Are you talking about the cauliflower or this? Usually about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. This would cook a little faster if the skillet was wider.
And not as deep.
Yeah, but this is actually going to be great. And we'll add the spinach in. We'll probably have to add it in kind of a little bit at a time.
When do you add the diced tomatoes? That's not till.
Yeah, that's once I get it. Once I get the pink gone.
The dog thinks it's a take a walk time versus a cooking show time.
Yeah, yeah.
This does smell really, really yummy.
I know he probably
So
is.
I think I remember too, we took this dish once and you made it into a breakfast by adding just over the meat a fried egg.
Yep, that's it.
That was really yummy.
Yeah, and that's, I think a lot of dishes kind of lend themselves to that. Now, what's interesting is it also kind of gets you used to eating different things in the morning. Because if I had to give like one piece of health advice to somebody, it is to realize that you had an entire industry dead set on selling you breakfast cereal and sweets for breakfast, right? I mean, for the longest time, prior to like the Post and the Kellogg's and all those folks, it was like, what were eggs? What was breakfast? It was bacon and eggs, right? Well, then all of a sudden they came in and tried to scare us to death, saying, oh, well, all of that fat was going to kill us, but what we really needed was a bowl full of sugar for breakfast.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's a matter of realizing, hey, those kind of sweet things are not the way to start your day, because it's absolutely going to put you on this insulin roller coaster all day long. And so if you start with something like a protein like this, and then add a couple of eggs to it, I mean, especially since it already going to have the spinach and everything in it, that's a pretty like perfect combination. All right, so I'm going to add the tomato in here because we've gotten rid of the pink.
Okay.
Okay. We're going to add.
Smells amazing.
Yeah. I'm going to put this here since I moved my recycle. All right. Actually, I'll just stick it over here. And then we'll add the raisins. All right. And then we're going to add the Worcestershire sauce, the capers, and we're going to start adding the spinach.
I'm surprised by seeing capers and olives.
Yeah.
Because they seem so similar. So what's the play between the two of them?
So capers have more of a salty taste to them.
Uh-huh.
Olives, you've got that, but I think you have a little bit more fat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, capers are actually like a flower bud.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen a lot of times that you'll see capers and olives together. And it has become, it's like 5 years ago, I probably had never bought a jar of capers. Now I go through one maybe once a month. That's probably not right. Probably once a quarter. But it's just, it brings kind of that sort of a bright, salty addition. Okay, now we're going in with the spinach, and it's just going to take a little time to wilt down in there.
Do you want me to? The timer's getting ready to go off. We'll wait and cancel that.
Yeah, go ahead and cancel it, and I'm just going to let this go for just a second, and then I'm going to pull that and see what it looks like. And then we're going to take a bite of this and see what we need to adjust.
Let's try it out first.
Oh yeah.
It needs more salt.
Yep. Yeah. That's it. Because the thing that you're going to want to like adjust on food is typically salt and acid. You also can adjust umami by adding and salt by adding fish sauce.
So this is like 4 cups of spinach that you're
the ballpark, yeah.
Cooking a little bit at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, because if I had a bigger pot, I could throw it all in at once. Yeah. But this is kind of that cup runneth over thing. But the beauty of this is now we've got, this will last for several days. But normally what I'll do is I'll have this like one meal a day, and then I'll do something else. What I have gotten to where I've started doing either a tuna or a salmon like salad, where I'll make mayonnaise and then do like a couple of 2 or 3 cans of tuna or salmon and put in some celery. Sometimes I'll put in some capers, and just kind of build that so that is like one of the meals each day.
I think that'd be a great realistic.
Yeah, we'll do that on one of these, and we'll also we'll refry that. We did fried shallots on one, and I didn't like the way they turned out, so we'll fry the shallots and then use the shallot oil. I'll already have some that's already made up, but
Leo's decided to join the show there.
Yeah, that's all right.
He likes the smells.
So we've got, this is cranking along. I'll let you take a look at that.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, let me
Very
give it.
colorful.
Let me give it.
It's actually kind of festive looking
Mm-hmm.
too.
It is. Got us our reds and our greens. Got a feeling this is going to be a little on the warm side since it's bubbling away. Man, I don't know that I would change anything on it.
Wow, good.
Because it really doesn't need any more salt. It's like dialed in there. Same thing with the acidity.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's check on the cauliflower rice. I'll throw a toaster down there. Yeah, starting to get a little, a little color on the edges. So I think that we're pretty much done here. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off. Yeah, like I said, this would be, absolutely something that this with, a couple of fried eggs on it would be great for breakfast. Next week, we're going to do a squash casserole. And I had said, hey, be sure to save any turkey that you have left over. We'll go ahead and use the turkey with the squash casserole, but it's completely up to you. If you don't have turkey left over, you don't have to go buy one. You can just do the squash casserole and have a protein to have with it. But what I've realized with the squash casserole, I basically paleoized a recipe that I'd found for squash casserole. And we'll talk next week about, kind of some real simple ways to paleoize a recipe. So anyway, enjoyed cooking with you guys. Have a great rest of your week. I look forward to seeing you next weekend. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.